Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC, and I'm pleased to say we are at last out of lockdown in the UK. Not completely, but we can certainly now go flying, so that's brilliant. So that means that I can finish part 3 of my little series I've done on how to fly a radio controlled plane for the first time. So if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, I'll stick the old cards up here. But this is the final part, which is basically where we're taking it down to the flying field and actually flying it. So it's nerve-wracking time, but hopefully if you follow this video and look at the way I fly it for the very first time, you'll hopefully pick some tips up, and this will help you beat the nerves and try your first flight out. So with the Bixler, which is what I've been using to do this series, this was my maiden flight as well. So although it's not obviously the first time I've ever flown a plane, it was the first time I've flown that plane at least. But anyway, as I say, I hope this helps you out. If you like what I'm doing with the channel and you're into fixed wing, and you like foam, EDFs, balsa, nitro, FPV, anything really to do with fixed wing, then this is the channel for you. So please give me a like and also subscribe. That would really help me out. If you've got any questions or comments, then stick them in the comments field below, particularly after you've watched this. If you've got any comments about the very first flight, any questions should I say, then feel free to ask and I will respond to you. And if you do subscribe, drop me a comment and I'll reply back to you as well. So let's cut to T-Dog in the field. Okay, so this is the big day. The nerves are going, but everything's going to be all right. So the first thing to do is we've got the plane obviously all set up. We've got the wings on, make sure the wings are secure. And the first thing you're going to want to do is a quick range check. Now I've already done one of these, but basically what this involves is plugging it in, making sure you've got your throttle cut on, so there's no risk of the plane going into the air, and then move the ailerons or something like that, something that you can see, and walk away from the plane as far as you can really and still see it, and just make sure that you've still got control of the ailerons in this case, and we can see that that looks okay. So that's an important thing to do, is a quick range check before you actually fly. You should only need to do that once. Okay, so we're going to make our way to the runway now. You might not have a runway obviously where you're flying if you're flying in a field. You want to check out the wind. Now again, you might not have a windsock, but you always want to take off into the wind. As it happens this evening, there isn't much wind, as you can see, but we are going to go down the long runway here. So I've not flown this plane before either, this Bixler 3. This is a maiden for me. So although I've flown lots of planes before, this is a maiden flight at least. So the nerves might not be quite as bad as yours, but you know, it's always a little nerve-wracking on a maiden. But these sorts of planes are really forgiving, so should hopefully be absolutely fine. Now what we're going to do, and you want to do this before every single flight, regardless of how experienced you are really, is you just check the surfaces and make sure that they're moving in the right direction before you take off. So when I've put my right aileron, I want the right aileron to go up and the left one to go down. And when I push the stick to the left, I want my left aileron to go up and my right aileron to go down, which it does. When I pull back on the elevator, I want the elevator to go up, which it does. And when I push down, I want the elevator to go down. And then the rudder, as I'm stood behind it, when I turn the stick to the right, I want the rudder to move to the right and then left, like that. So do this check every single time that you fly. And then what I would recommend you do is have a taxi around. So let's try taxiing this around, just get a feel for how it handles on the ground. Make sure it tracks straight and hold in elevator so it doesn't go anywhere, and go easy on the throttle.
and just get a feel for how it taxis around. The grass is a little bit long today in our case, but just get a feel for how it handles on the ground, because when you open the throttle up, obviously things are going to happen a little bit faster. So I do that a few times and make sure that you're used to how it handles. So we're ready to fly now, and what I'm going to do is basically open the throttle. I'm going to hold some back elevator in to keep that tail down until it's built up some speed, and then it should really just lift off into the air on its own. And then I'm going to let it climb out, and I'm going to bank to the left. And I'm not really going to use the rudder. I'm just going to use the ailerons and the elevator on this very first flight to control it. And once it's in the air and it's settled a little bit, then my next job is to trim it out, which is a little bit tricky if it's the first time you've ever flown a plane, because you might need to just look down at your transmitter to get the trim controls, but you're only going to be using really the elevator and aileron, as I've said. So you might want to, before you actually take off, just get a feel for those without looking at the transmitter, so you know where they are. Okay, we're all set. This is it. No turning back now. Let's see how she goes. Taking off. Gradually increase the throttle, let it roll. I'm going to open it up. And she's up. And straight away I can tell that it wants to nose down. I'm going to back off the throttle. I'm going to bank to the left now. Nice and steady, backing off the throttle. Okay, so it does want to nose down quite a bit, so I'm going to, as you can see, needs quite a lot of up elevator. So just hold it on the stick, bring it back round. I'm not going to adjust the trim now. I'm going to make sure I'm happy with it, and then I'm going to trim center. Just battle with it a bit until you can see it's still wanting to nose down. It's perhaps a little bit nose heavy. Okay, and it's turning ever so slightly to the left. So we'll add a little bit of right trim. I'm still having to turn it right, so we'll have a bit more right trim. Okay, that's flying about straight now. So it is quite a nerve-wracking time if you've not flown one before and you've got to trim it out like that. You will have to hold the stick and just try and keep it level, but you can see now it's flying quite nicely now. Maybe a tad more up elevator. But as you can see, it flies nice and gentle. There's nothing nasty happened, you know, it didn't snap to the right or the left. You've just got to be ready that it's not going to fly straight the first time that you fly it, and you've just got to be prepared for that and expect it. If you can bring someone down to the flying field with you, obviously if you're not part of a club, if you can at least just bring a friend who could maybe do the trims for you while you're controlling it with the stick. Obviously talk to them beforehand and let them know what they need to do. But now you can see it's tracking quite nicely, still just a touch to the left, so we'll add a little bit more right trim. I think we're about there now. So now let's settle in and just enjoy flying it around on this really nice evening. I've only got half throttle, it's not tearing around the sky. And what I want to do now, although we've only just started flying really, is, as you can see, I'm also just doing some nice circuits. Nothing fancy, I'm not doing any rolls or spins or anything like that. I'm just doing plain old circuits and just getting a feel for the plane, and I'm just using the aileron to turn and the elevator just to pull it around slightly, up elevator. But what I want to do now is I want to start practicing my landing, because landing is actually the most difficult part of flying a plane, and you don't want to be doing it knowing that your battery's about to run out, so you want to give yourself plenty of time. So first of all, let's see how well it glides. We'll bring it round. Again, we want to land into the wind, and we're going to bring it round, and we'll just come off the throttle. So I'm no throttle whatsoever now, and let's just see what it does. Like I say, I've not flown this before, so I don't know myself. So I'm hands off at the minute, and as you can see, it glides really nicely, and that's the beauty of these sorts of models for training. It dips its nose a little bit, so I want to introduce a little bit of throttle now because I don't want it to stall. I'm going to bring it back round with a bit more throttle, and I'm going to try that again and just get a feel for how it slows down, because you want to be careful that you don't stall it, which is when you keep the throttle off for too long and it basically just runs out of speed. But on these models you'll just see the nose dip. Obviously if you're low to the ground, that's not the best thing. So I'm just going to let it glide in. I've got my hands off the sticks at the minute, and it just, you can see how fast it's going forward and coming down at the same time. So it's got a good glide rate on. So we're going to power back up. I'm going to come round, and that shows me that it's got a really good glide rate. So I'm going to have to take my throttle off quite early on and just let it glide in nice and slow, and do this a few times. You know, as long as you've got the battery, just do this a few times. So I've got throttle off now. I'm going to bring it in, facing the runway again, and basically if it's going too fast you can just apply a little bit of up elevator to slow it down, so the elevator almost becomes the throttle control when you're coming into land. And if you see it looking like it's going to stall, just let go of the elevator like that, bit more up elevator. I'm not going to land it this time. So okay, we're going to go, we've got a feel for how it glides, and don't worry about landing it at your feet, it doesn't matter as long as you get it down safely. That's all you need. So we're going to attempt to land in this time. I'm happy that I know sort of how well it glides and how much back elevator I can put on to slow it down. Like I say, when you're coming into land you kind of just want to apply a little bit of back elevator and then let go of it as it slows down a bit too much, let it glide a bit, then apply a bit more, and just do it like that. So we'll throttle off now, let it glide, it's coming in, let it glide. I'm still not touching the elevator. Let it glide, let it glide, let it glide. Up elevator now. And she's down. There you go. Hopefully you're in the same situation after you've watched this video, and I hope that helps. I really hope it helps you get into flying, and if you've got those nerves and you've built the plane but you don't take it out, then hopefully this video will help you on that first flight. As you can see, there's nothing nasty happened there when I took off. It did need a bit of trimming, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. You've just got to be ready for it, that's all. Don't expect the plane to just track nice and straight as soon as it takes off. So leave me some comments if you think this has been useful. If you want me to answer any questions that you've got about your first flight, then leave a comment and I'll definitely answer you. Really appreciate you watching. Hope you've enjoyed this 3-part series of learn how to fly, and as I said, I really hope that this gets you flying as well, because it is a fantastic hobby. It's so relaxing or absolutely full of adrenaline depending on what sort of plane you fly. So I definitely urge anyone to, if you're thinking about it, just give it a go. And as usual, if you could give me a thumbs up if this has been helpful, and if you could also subscribe, that really helps me out. And I'll see you soon for the next one. So thanks a lot for watching.